Take a look at these Confederate cannons. They terrified Union commanders throughout the Civil War. There's just one problem. One of these cannons isn't actually a cannon. A Union scout studied this position and reported a dangerous artillery battery. His report went straight to Union generals making life or death decisions. These generals changed their plans because they feared overwhelming enemy firepower. The entire deception was centered around this single weapon sitting on a ridge. At first glance, it looks exactly like every other cannon beside it. But underneath the paint wasn't iron, it wasn't steel, it was wood. And somehow, a carved log convinced trained military officers it was a deadly artillery. This fake cannon became one of the most successful battlefield deceptions of the Civil War. So why were Confederate soldiers fighting with fake cannons in the first place? The fake cannon solved a problem that was threatening the entire Confederate war effort. The South needed cannons everywhere, but simply didn't have enough of them. Iron was scarce, manufacturing capacity was limited, resources were running out. Meanwhile, Northern factories were producing weapons on a completely different scale. It wasn't even close. The North had a huge manufacturing advantage. Confederate commanders faced an impossible question. How do you look stronger than you are? Every empty artillery position was an invitation for the enemy to attack. Then someone looked at a pile of timber and had an unusual idea. What if the enemy never discovered the difference between a cannon and a log? The solution sounds ridiculous today, but it was about to fool entire armies. But making a fake cannon believable required more than just carving a log. The process began with something surprisingly ordinary, a freshly cut tree trunk. Experienced craftsmen carefully carved each log until it matched the shape of real artillery. Iron bands and dark paint disguised the wood, making the illusion remarkably convincing. Then, they mounted it on a real artillery carriage to complete the illusion. Standing side by side, even experienced soldiers struggled to tell them apart. From hundreds of yards away, through smoke and fog, the deception became almost perfect. The soldiers completed the performance by behaving exactly like real artillery crews. Union scouts faithfully recorded every fake cannon as a dangerous gun. The trap was ready. Now they needed the enemy to believe it. Soon, an entire Union army would make decisions based on nothing more than painted logs. The first real test came when Union generals saw the fake battery and had to decide whether to attack. In March 1862, Confederate troops prepared to abandon their defenses near Centreville, Virginia. As the soldiers slipped away overnight, they deliberately left their fake cannons behind. When the sun rose, the defensive line still looked heavily armed and fully occupied. Union scouts counted cannon after cannon and reported a powerful artillery line. These reports convinced Union commanders that attacking would be far too dangerous. Instead of charging forward, the Union army slowed its advance and waited. When Union troops finally entered the position, something immediately felt wrong. The terrifying artillery battery wasn't made of iron at all. It was carved from logs. The Confederates had escaped safely while fake cannons bought them precious time. One of history's simplest battlefield tricks had completely fooled an advancing army. Centreville wasn't the only time fake cannons changed military decisions during the Civil War. From this distance, every cannon looked exactly the same. Smoke, fog, and distance made careful inspection almost impossible. Scouts counted shapes, not materials. Every log became another cannon on the map. Those reports shaped every decision made by the commanding generals. If those cannons were real, a frontal attack could become a disaster. So commanders hesitated. and hesitation was exactly what the Confederates wanted. Every minute of delay gave Southern forces more time to strengthen their defenses. Sometimes buying just a few extra hours could change the outcome of an entire campaign. The greatest weapon wasn't the fake cannon itself, it was the uncertainty it created. A painted log had become a psychological weapon, more powerful than anyone expected. The trick spread quickly. It wasn't just the Confederates using fake cannons anymore. Once the Union understood the deception, they realized just how effective it could be. Soon, both armies were using the same simple idea to confuse their enemies. Now, artillery position became a guessing game. Even experienced scouts could never be completely sure what they were seeing. That uncertainty forced generals to make decisions with incomplete information. Every cautious decision gave the opposing army something priceless: time. A carved log could protect an entire defensive position without ever firing a shot. The real weapon wasn't wood, it was the fear of making the wrong decision. And that's exactly why Quaker guns remained effective throughout the war. But could you tell the difference if you were standing on the battlefield yourself? Let's see how well you would have done. One of these cannons is completely fake. Would you choose the cannon on the left, or would you pick the one on the right? Now imagine you're half a mile away, looking through smoke and primitive binoculars. Suddenly, telling them apart becomes almost impossible. Now add moving soldiers, battlefield chaos, and the pressure of reporting quickly. The answer is this one. Underneath the paint was nothing but carved wood. Even after finding one, many soldiers couldn't believe they'd been fooled. Now imagine making life or death decisions with dozens of these spread across an entire battlefield. The greatest strength of a Quaker gun wasn't what it was what your enemy believed it was. And those false beliefs bought something far more valuable than firepower: time. The greatest advantage wasn't the fake cannon itself, it was the time it created. Every uncertain report forced commanders to slow down and reconsider their next move. While the enemy hesitated, Confederate soldiers strengthened their defenses. Supplies arrived, reinforcements moved, valuable opportunities were preserved. Sometimes the deception helped entire units withdraw before the enemy advanced. One weapon fired cannonballs, the other fired doubt into the enemy's mind. In war, uncertainty can be just as dangerous as enemy fire. The Confederates didn't need every cannon to be real. They only needed the enemy to believe they were. Again and again, those precious hours influenced movements across the battlefield. The fake cannon never fired a shot, but it repeatedly shaped what happened next. But here's the most surprising part. These fake cannons were astonishingly simple to build. It's hard to believe this ordinary log would soon become one of war's cleverest weapons. A few skilled carpenters could transform timber into a convincing artillery piece surprisingly fast. Black paint and metal bands completed the illusion from almost any battlefield distance. Placed on a real cannon carriage, the fake looked ready to fire at any moment. Mixed with real artillery, the deception became almost impossible to detect. Enemy scouts reported what they believed they saw, not what they could prove. Compared to casting real artillery, these decoys required only wood, labor, and imagination. The least expensive weapon on the battlefield sometimes created the biggest psychological advantage. Its true power was never destruction, its power was convincing the enemy to hesitate. A painted log became one of history's greatest examples of military deception. So what does a fake cannon teach us about how wars are really won? This cannon never fired a single cannonball, yet soldiers feared it all the same. Its greatest ammunition wasn't iron, it was uncertainty, hesitation, and the fear of making a fatal mistake. One weapon destroyed fortifications, the other quietly shaped decisions before a battle even began. In the end, The terrifying artillery piece was nothing more than a carefully painted log. The deception bought precious time, allowing troops to reinforce positions or withdraw before the enemy advanced. Again and again, this simple trick proved that appearances could influence military strategy. Remarkably, one of history's cleverest battlefield deceptions began with nothing more than carpentry skills. What looked like a devastating weapon was simply a tree given a convincing disguise. The Quaker gun reminds us that in war, perception can sometimes be as powerful as firepower. Sometimes the most powerful weapon is one your enemy only imagines.